Okay, I think we're live, Nick. So, hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our monthly webinar series on customer success thought leadership. And this month, I am with somebody who I'm sure is familiar to everybody, certainly familiar to me. It is CEO of Gainsight, an all-round awesome human being, Nick
Oh,
Mehta. Hooray! Hi, Nick.
awesome to be here, Rick. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me as having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, as a regular guest, probably pushing it a bit, but certainly we've had you several times and
Yeah,
always enjoy the conversation. So
yeah.
a big welcome back. And you were saying your voice is a bit hoarse. So
Yes. So
explain why.
apologies in advance to the audience. I will be able to communicate, but not with the same volume or sort of vocal tenor that I normally do, because I was trying to figure out why, but this morning I woke up and I was like, oh gosh, my voice is gone. I'm like that Ariel from Little Mermaid. I lost it. And I think the root cause is last Friday night, I took my daughter to see the first Taylor Swift concert in Phoenix. And she's not just a fan, I'm a huge fan. So I definitely sang along to every song. And I was like, I'm going to lose my voice at some point. And I think then all the meetings every day this week, plus the Taylor Swift. And so I'll get it back this weekend, but we'll still have a great conversation today.
We will soldier on, and
We will.
all in a good cause. As I was saying, no, it's not. There's nothing more fun than singing along. I love
Totally.
karaoke. So.
Totally.
So anyway,
Well,
yes, warm welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world, whatever time of day you happen to be, morning, afternoon, evening, or middle of the night. This is being recorded. There will be a recording sent to everybody who registered. This is one of a series. Please do sign up for future ones. We've got next month, for example, Alan Camp, who is a top recruiter
oh, cool.
specializing in customer success. And we're talking to him, funnily enough, about the market for customer success manager recruitment in 2020.
Nice.
So, yeah, so
Great.
do join
Great
us for that
conversation.
next month. But of course, this month, we're talking, as we've said, to Nick Mehta, CEO of Gainsight. And the title for our topic today is Why Customer Success is Even More Important in a Recession. We've
Yeah.
got roughly 60 minutes. You are welcome to say hi in the chat, tell us where you're from, what you're up to, and who you are. That would be lovely. And also to post your questions, comments, observations, jokes, witticisms, agreements, disagreements, or anything you want to put in there. Keep it clean. But it would be great to hear from you. And if you have any questions for Nick, fire away, and we will try to get keep our eye on the chat window as well. So let's kick off. And if I don't, I mean, I think most people know, if not everybody, who you are, but maybe you could just spend a moment just introducing yourself, Nick.
Sure, totally. It's a great for people that don't know me. It's great to meet you. I'm the CEO of Gainsight. I've been running Gainsight about 10 years, which is crazy, Rick. I mean, that's amazing.
Mm.
It's been definitely flew by, and obviously had the pleasure of really witnessing this incredible renaissance of this customer success community and this profession. And a lot of what you've done is amazing, Rick, and kind of bringing that together. And at Gainsight, our mission is really all about helping to really, I think of it as threefold. So we've got this kind of big picture mission, which is what we call be living proof you can win in business while being human first. So this idea that there's a new approach to business that's all about making sure all the stakeholders we deal with, our employees, our alumni, our candidates, our customers, they're all human beings first. So that's really what drives us at the heart of it. But then the next level up is one part of human first is this incredible customer success profession and community, and really helping to build that and help people learn from each other. You do an amazing job of that too. And then obviously to pay the bills, and the day job is we build software that helps our customers build a more durable approach to growth in their business. And this is what we're going to talk a little bit about, given the economy. And the way we think about durable growth is, how do I find efficient ways to grow in a consistent way, not just the start and stop of like hiring more salespeople or spending more marketing. And that shows up in three core solution areas that we help with. So one is, how do you help your customer success team be more scalable and more proactive and more efficient so you improve your retention and expansion? Number two is, how do you create like a digital experience, like a digital, what we call a digital hub, so your customers can engage with you in community, in forums, knowledge base, documentation, all in one integrated website? And then number three is, how do we actually bring some of that experience into the product? So how do you make the product itself better at driving adoption, retention, engagement through kind of in-app guides and messaging? So that's what Gainsight does.
Great. Thank you very much for that introduction. And actually, it reminded me, as you were saying, about sort of this people first aspect of it, which I totally am signed up to. I like you, I've written a book on customer success management, and I want to write a follow-up book. And if I did, I would title it Outcomes, Outcomes, Outcomes. And the reason for that is outcomes for the business, outcomes for the employees, and outcomes for the customers, because you've got to have all three. And like by doing one well, you help the others. So
Totally.
It's that combination of the three that get everybody where we want to go.
By the way, I love that you said it that way, because that's exactly one of our values. Our company is success for all, which means drive success for all of our stakeholders. Right. And we think of it as customers, employees, and investors, all three kind of stakeholders. And when we talk about internally, we think of this idea of customer success as this triple play win, right? It's about how am I going to actually make my customers more successful with outcomes, make my business more successful with business outcomes, like, for example, retention, expansion, and then also make my team able to just, have more satisfaction with their job, get promoted, feel better. It's exactly, if you're not thinking about all three at once, you're not doing the right job as leaders.
I think so. If you're going to try and make your customers happy with miserable employees, good luck.
Yeah. Good luck to you. Right. Totally. I've seen people, Rick, I've seen people try it, and I wouldn't recommend it. So
no, not at all. So it's got to be that combination. Anyway, okay, let's talk about what we're meant to be talking about, I suppose. And actually, no, I was going to ask you a bit of a side question before we dig into that. Just looking at my notes here, I was going to ask you, if you don't mind, a little bit cheeky, but I think that given the massive rise of Gainsight, and you're a really sort of big part of customer success now, and almost I would say like Gainsight it's like a Jupiter. It's got its own pull, almost like a sun in our solar system of customer success. All right, and you're the CEO, and that gives you, puts you again almost on a pedestal in a way, which I'm sure you must feel sometimes and not feel comfortable with, and sometimes maybe you do feel comfortable with it. But here's my question.
Yeah,
I think it's hard sometimes for us to get an understanding of what it's really like being the CEO of a large, successful tech startup like Gainsight. So would you perhaps be kind enough to share with us a typical day in the life of the CEO of Gainsight? That'd be really interesting.
Oh, Rick, I think it's a great question. And by the way, first of all, I think one of the things that happens in business and life in general is, the way you perceive yourself and the way other people perceive you is sometimes different, right? And we all have imposter syndrome. So honestly, I don't think Gainsight is a large tech company yet. I want it to be, but I have such big ambitions. I'm like, oh, we can do so much more. So funnily enough, I wouldn't describe, but I get like every now and then I'll go to an event and I'll be like, I run a startup called Gainsight. They're like, that's not a startup. What are you talking about? And so I totally get, it's sort of different from a different lens. Everything looks different. Now, a couple of things I'll say, and then I'll give you specifics on the day in life. I think there's a lot of, somebody asked me recently, what do you think people misunderstand the most about your day-to-day life? And interesting enough, the misunderstanding is like that I don't sleep or I must work all the time. And one of the things I actually am really, since I think of these things as kind of marathons, not sprints, I really try to think about my life and how do I make it more sustainable and good and just what I want, my balance. Now, it's easy to do that as a CEO because you have the control, and it's harder for other people to do that. So, but hopefully there's some level of, vision of how we can all have better control. So what I figured out for myself is I like I have a lot of routine. I like routine. Some people want a lot of variety. I'm like that guy who's like, I'm going to do the same thing every day. So my routine is pretty consistent, which is I try to sleep about 7 or 8 hours a night, and pretty good about that, generally speaking. And then I wake up and then I try to work out in the morning, just so, half an hour, 45 minutes. Today I did not because of this voice issue and all that, but normally I do. I get in a workout, Peloton or, go for a run or lifting or something like that. So that always gives me a lot of energy in the morning. Right. And then, my call, being in California, we're on the kind of edge of the time zone. So to work with folks like yourselves, we need to wake up a little earlier. So typically 7:30 first call. What I figured out about myself is I love interacting with customers and our teammates. I'm actually, some people are like, oh, I hate meetings and Zooms and, back to back. I'm actually enjoy like interacting. So I'll just give you today as an example. The first meeting, 7:30, was product roadmap strategy, which I love those, obviously, just like where are we going? Our product team does an awesome job. Then I connected with a new chief customer officer who's new in the job and wanted some advice and could be a potential Gainsight customer over time. Then right before this, we did a actually really great call with the CEO of one of our clients where he wanted to kind of know more about like what they're doing, but also where we're going as a company and vision. That was super fun. Now I'm with you, which is great. I do a lot of these community type events, which I'm incredibly grateful to be invited.
Thank you.
And then I've got 2 customer executive briefings after this. And then I've got another webinar, literally 2 today. And then I've got 4 customer calls. Now, one of the things I try to do is to manage my own balance is if I have a one-on-one, whether it's a customer or an employee, I try to do it over a call, not a Zoom. And I try to go for a walk. And so actually I end up every day on Slack, I publish my diary of what I did that day to just be transparent. So I had this great conversation with Rick and I published my step count. And I actually, hopefully a little bit of a nudge to other people to take care of yourselves. And actually the weather here is kind of terrible right now. It's a little bit more London than we like in California,
really?
But yeah, it's right. But when it's good weather, I'll get 20,000 steps in a day, pretty consistently.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So we'll wrap up around 5:30. Often I'll like have my personal trainer coming in, so I'll do a workout then, and then hang out with the family, and then I'll have like maybe 45 minutes of catch up of the night. But if you followed the math on that, that's not like 15 hours. I'm like 9 hours. I mean, it's, and then Friday's a little less and then catch up on work on Sunday. So I've actually timed it and I probably work about 50 hours a week. So that might be surprising a load of people, right? Compared to maybe, you think, Nick must be working all the time. Honest, the answer is no. Now, some of that is like
disappointingly not a sociopath then. We imagine the CEOs to be in some ivory tower working away on your own. You're very much a people person, and you like to be.
I love people. That's definitely something I love. By the way, near Bay asks on chat, when do I eat lunch? That is a good question. You have to because I'm back to back, I have to kind of jam. So I will, it looks like 12 I have an EBR with the customer, and I'll get some oatmeal and make it. And luckily,
when the moment is right.
In the moment, I'm going to fit it in. So those are the challenges we all have. I'm sure many of you have as well. So
I'm sure. Yeah. Thank you, Nerby, for that question. Yeah. Great one. And thanks for that. I think it's just interesting to see a little bit of the person.
Totally.
So I really do appreciate you opening up like that. So, okay, now we really should get on and talk about.
I guess so. We should talk about business. Yeah.
Okay. So all right. What is a recession? Let's just clarify what we're talking about first. So from your perspective, like, what is a recession and are we in one?
Yeah, it's a great question. And frankly, I wouldn't even describe it. The short answer is we don't know if we're in a recession or not, right? But we think there's a recession coming. There's a well-defined definition of a recession, which people debate a little bit, but it's based on this. In the US, there's this Board of Economic National
3 months of negative growth, right?
Yeah,
and there's
technical definition, and there's some, but anyways, the bigger thing I would say is when people are in periods of uncertainty, that's when people kind of hunker down in their business, right? Yes. So, if we're in a world where we know exactly what's going to happen, it's easier to invest in the future. But if you don't know what's going to happen, and what's happening right now is I would argue, the most uncertainty I've ever seen in my business career. Because what we have right now is with this period, many folks know, and they've unfortunately experienced, which is this incredible amount of inflation, right? Where things got more expensive. And obviously governments tried to react to that, raise interest rates. Then you have this second issue of like the job market, which is a tale of two cities, right? In tech, so much empathy for probably some people on this Zoom who've gone through lots of changes in their company, downsizing. But in other parts of the economy, like there's no employment of everyone is fully employed in restaurants and hotels and manufacturing. And so you get this uncertainty about labor. You have uncertainty about interest rates. Like the government's trying to figure out, all the banks are trying to figure out, do we raise interest rates to slow down the economy, or is the economy already slowing down and we need to actually stop raising interest rates? And yesterday, the Federal Reserve signaled that they're going to stop raising interest rates. Then you've got, obviously, unfortunately, all the geopolitical challenges, which could be a whole different podcast. Then you've got AI and how that's going to have an impact, which I think is going to be, there's a lot of positive, but it's going to have a lot of disruption too. And so because of that, what you have is business leaders, including me and every other CEO, are like, I have no idea what's going to happen over the next 3 years, right? I literally have no idea. So the word I would not even use it's not recession, it's uncertainty. Uncertainty is in my opinion, an all-time high for it, like at least in the last 40, 50 years. And because of that, we're going to talk more about it. People kind of go back to their roots in uncertain times, right? You think about this as a human, when we're not sure what's going to happen, you're going to just protect your base. And so what that means practically is everyone right now is like, look, I got to protect my customer base. I got to retain them. And what's happening is last night I had dinner with a bunch of customers, and everyone is seeing like massive vendor consolidation. So if your customers are getting taken by other vendors, and then massive price pressure, everyone wants a discount and everyone wants to reduce spend. And so it is a big thing. And that's why the job everyone is on the Zoom has never been important than right now. More important than right now.
Do you know what? I think you've absolutely nailed it. I couldn't agree more. You've put it in words I hadn't really thought of it, but now you've said it, it seems to me completely obvious. For ages now, like since really the beginning of the summer 22, I felt that we've been in this period of uncertainty where the expectation was we'll be entering a recession soon. We'll be entering a recession. Yeah. We may be entering a recession. So something's coming, something's coming, something's coming. Like we can see the storm clouds. They're getting worse. They're getting worse. They're getting worse. Are we there? We're not there yet. We're not there. But in the meantime, there has still been all this uncertainty, and still is, and it's not got it's got greater rather than less. And of course, uncertainty equals risk.
Yes.
Risk equals caution, if you've got any sense. So then that's what is the mood generally in business, right? It's a cautious mood. It's a do what we know works. Don't do anything risky right now because there's enough risk already on the table. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All
and
right.
Mother, I saw a question in here on what we're doing around uncertainty. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or later, but yeah. I mean, I think it was for both of us. So I'll share from my perspective, Rick, and then I'd love to hear maybe your point of view too. I think I'll talk about what we're doing at Gainsight and also like what we're seeing our clients do, which largely is the same thing because obviously we learn from our clients. So I think there's one big theme, which is, okay, every company is trying to consolidate and reduce spend on IT and software, right? Huge. And I had, saw a customer yesterday and she's like, my CIO came up to me and she like had a spreadsheet of all of the spend. And she's like, do we need this? Do we need this? Do we need? And one of the questions was, do we need Gainsight? And luckily our champion was like, if you don't take away Gainsight, I'm quitting the company. And so we're finding that customer. But that conversation is going right now about your solution with your customers in every company. And what's happening specifically is, if you're a mid-size or smaller company, the bigger vendors are coming in and saying, look, we can do all that stuff. You don't need Gainsight. You don't need company X.
Okay. Consolidate your 4 apps into our 1 app.
Totally. So what are we
combined? Yeah.
What are we doing about it? We are seeing this huge opportunity to arm our champions with content to be able to proactively show the value. Because the champion using your solution, often if you're doing a good job, is a fan, right?
Right. But they know. Yeah, but it's anecdotal, right?
And so you almost want to give them the talk track, the slide deck to go meet with their CFO. The CFO is the most powerful person in the company right now. Yeah. And go meet with them and say, why do we need this solution? Why can't we do it in some other platform? Blah, blah, blah. What ROI are we getting? And so being able to really arm the champion with value talk track is so important right now. So that's number one, is just the value talk track. Right. Number 2 is related to this. Most of our customers, because of the uncertainty, and including Gainsight, are really controlling their operating expenses, right? They're not hiring a lot of people. They're being very cautious. So what does that mean? Well, we got to get better at scaling CS without hiring more people. And this is the whole area of digital customer success, right? The hottest topic in every event is now digital plus AI. That is the theme everywhere. And so how do I automate? How do I make it more self-service? How to do more in the app? So those 2 themes of kind of arming your buyer around vendor consolidation conversations and then scaling more through digital, those are the 2 things I hear the most. How about you, Rick? What are you hearing?
Yeah, well, I think that both of those make complete sense. And perhaps for a SaaS company, I would add, like, first of all, look at your product and really understand how your product can be or should be or is invaluable to your customers. If you don't understand why they need your product, how on earth will they understand? So and if by the way you don't see something about your product that they absolutely must have, you go and develop it now. Because that's what your product needs to be. It needs to be something that isn't nice to have, that is essential. Okay. So right now it's not about nice to have, it's about essential. It's not about what we could also do, it's about what do we have to do. So I think that's make your product invaluable. Sorry,
that's a great point, because I think that's, if I added in a third thing that ties to the first 2, vendor consolidation and digital, the third one I would add in that fits with what you just said is commoditization. In other words, people are like, look, in a down economy, I don't care if it's this solution or this solution. Like, I I want the cheapest thing out there, right?
You don't need the gold-plated version right now. Again, so
Totally.
like,
So you need
do the stuff your customers really need. Don't
You
add
need to
all
find the way to do the thing that's going to make you a must-have. You nailed it, Rick. That is, and actually, what's great, if you're in CS, you might say, "Well, that's not my job, and I'm not in product." I'm like, what is your customers are asking for,
that's the bit of the customer success. Yeah. You've got the fantastic relationships on the ground, at the coalface. The people who actually use this stuff to do to create the outputs that add up to the outcomes that the customer needs. So you're there, being able to tell the product, look, there's a reason. You're meant to press this button, then go to page 3 and do it. They don't do that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They told me why.
Yeah.
So let me explain to you why it's much quicker for them to not do any of that, and instead they just go straight to that button there, and then they slide that slider, and then they get the and it's an adequate result for them. It's not as good as doing it the proper way, but actually it's good enough for their purposes. So we need a way to follow what they want, not to try and push them down a 3 times the length process that we think is right. So there's all of that stuff. But then the second point that I would say is your first point, which is then, having worked out what is invaluable about your product, make darn sure that you and your customer are measuring that thing happening.
Right. Yes.
And that it gets reported. So we have it in the practical CSM framework. We have a phase of the framework which is not called value creation. It's called value realization.
Realization, so big. Yeah.
Yeah. The difference being that you're not just creating the value, you're making darn sure everybody realizes it. Because
it's such a,
and to your point, that now must include the CFO. They've got, because remember, on the balance sheet, they see the expenditure. They see the money going out every month for the cost of your service. What they want back is not a reassurance, oh, it's very useful, take my word for it. No, They need to know back, if that's the X going out, what's Y coming back in?
Totally. So well said. One thing I didn't know that is that the value realization is such a hot topic. And part of that is the value that they need now, right? So in a boom economy, value realization might be about, hey, I'm helping you hire more people, grow faster. What I would advise you to think about, if you're thinking about your own value pitch for your product, is what value is relevant to people now. And by the way, pretty simple, because we've talked about already. How are you helping them reduce the number of people they have to hire? How are you helping them manage through an uncertain time? How are you helping them retain their customers, right? These kinds of things. You need the value for the moment we're in now, not just kind of generic value.
Total light bulb moment. That's really, really powerful what you've just said there. Yeah. Thank you for inserting that. That's useful to me.
I'm learning too, by the way. This is really great.
Well. Yeah.
This is awesome. I love it.
That's great. So, okay. So, and then I think, as you said, the automation side of things, the digitalization, the use of AI, and I think you also mentioned, perhaps earlier on, when you were describing what Gainsight are up to, actually putting customer success directly into the product itself.
Totally. Huge topic.
So it's customer success is not just the customer success managers. Like customer success management, that's like a department who, use some CS best practices to gain the customer success, but customer success can also come directly from making your product as customer successy as possible in the first place.
Well, Rick, I mean, this is what you and I have talked about for so long, and it's really happening now, which is customer success is the entire customer journey, right? Now, as you said, there's a tricky nomenclature thing. When people hear customer success, they think, oh, that's the department. That's the challenge. Right. But it's not just the department, right? That's one part of the solution. It's actually, like, I'd argue, it goes all the way back to like how you're building your product and what goes in there, like you just said, and then it goes into the marketing value proposition and how that aligns to what you're actually delivering, and goes into the sales process and how you're, to your value realization point, how you're capturing the value goals of the client. Then it goes into onboarding, right? How are we setting this client up for success from the beginning? Then the customer success management department, right? Who's obviously about value realization, like you said, showing the value, right? Then it goes back into product, then it goes back into expansion. And what the best companies are doing is not just thinking about this as a department, but thinking as the department that drives change throughout the whole company. And I know many of you watching, that's what you're doing right now. So.
Okay, so here's a thought just to throw in here in this conversation, because I think it's very relevant. Again, it's one of my pre-prepared questions. I've pretty much at this point I've thrown the script out of the window, which I should have known.
Love it. This is such a good conversation.
Nick. Yeah. It was never going to work, was it? It's like trying to arrange 12 cats onto a sofa. You know, the time you've got the first 2 cats on there, you pick up the third cat, the first 2 have already left. So I did have a question, though, around tech startups and perhaps even more specifically, SaaS companies.
Yep.
Recession. Or let's say, again, actually, let's use your term, uncertainty.
Yes.
Because again, normally, if you've invested in some hardware, some heavy plant, okay, you can't just hand it back. You've got to make it work.
Yep.
So is, due to the nature of SaaS being so easy to stop the contract, is a SaaS startup actually more vulnerable in a period of uncertainty than a normal company? And did you want to sort of say anything about that?
Way more vulnerable. Yeah, I mean, that's the tough reality we all have to face, is we're all way more vulnerable.
That's my feeling.
Obviously, like, and frankly, some ways the more simple your solution is to get up and running, the more vulnerable you are right now, because frankly, easy come, easy go. So there's some SaaS solutions that are like, think of a big HR software SaaS or ERP. Those are not as vulnerable because, you know what, like, they take a long time to get up and running. People don't want to switch. But if you've got some point solution that does something really awesome that people love, and it's like 2 days to go live, it's also 2 days to unwind too, by the way. So you are easy come, easy go. This is a big challenge people have to wrestle with. And that's why there's an opportunity, which is if you do it the right way, you can consolidate and get more share in your customers. But if you're asleep at the wheel, this is going to be a real problem for SaaS companies right now.
Great point. And actually, some of your greatest qualities could be biting you right now.
Totally.
So that ease of, ease of coming in equals ease of coming out, and then therefore, and does that mean that customer success managers might be quite important, Nick? What do you think?
Maybe a little bit. I think you and I might be a little bit biased, but I think
we might be. But again, see that is the power of having a high quality, well-paid customer success management team, which is that they should be there helping that customer again to understand and to realize the value, not just to have the value, but to understand the critical importance that your app or your product or service or whatever it is, may not be SaaS, right? It doesn't matter. The thing that they are, things that they are, the solution they're purchasing from you is actually very important to them. And as you said, not just very important in the long term, but actually it's important right now for things that they're concerned about at the moment right now. Yes. And that might mean like readdressing some priorities and changing your marketing. So your marketing might all have been about in 10 years time, we're going to make you this fantastic. Maybe that's not the right message right now. So there's an interesting point to bring.
You're so right. I mean, Rick, we're doing this at Gainsight, right? So in a boom economy, Gainsight can help you grow more with your customers and accelerate growth, right? But now it's about how do you get more efficient?
It's not about dominating the market. It's about survival.
Survival, totally.
So we've got some great questions coming in. Kavitha says, Rick, Nick, can you please share use cases of digital customer success? Did you want to have a bash at that, Nick?
I'll take a stab at it and then love to hear from you as well. I mean, it's just amazing to see what people are doing in digital. It's incredible, actually. I'll give you a few examples. Actually, this is so cool because we have our Pulse conference May 17th and 18th in San Francisco, the big industry event. Love to have people there, well, a few thousand people. And I've actually seen, we have presentations, and I'm still maniacal. I love our customers and the details. So I ask each customer that's presenting to send me a couple-minute video of what they're going to present. So I've actually watched a whole bunch of them. So I'm going to give you some real examples right now. So just kind of jumping around to a couple of different parts of digital. So one part of digital is about creating really personalized journeys for customers, right? To both manage the customer in a way that works for them, but also to be more efficient yourself. So Gong is a company many folks probably use or know about, call recording software, incredible business. And they're going to present about how they actually do this really awesome risk scoring around renewals to understand what's the risk of this renewal. And then if the renewal is low risk, they push it through a digital first renewal motion, meaning communications to the customer. They use Gainsight, so automated communications about the renewal coming up and like kind of forms, but there's a little bit of human touch, but really making that renewal more self-service for that a kind of high likelihood to renew customer. By the way, that's good for the customer, also good for God, right? So that's one example where it's like kind of a personalized journey. Another example that I think is really, really interesting is it's a company called Deltek. Deltek is basically a ERP software company, kind of large, mid to large size company. And they're presenting an awesome session. Everyone's going to love it, on how do customer success and product collaborate about in-product messaging. So I have a in-product message, they use Gainsight PX. And how do I collaborate to drive the right adoption in the product? It's going to be super cool. And it's really about building the bonds between CS and products. I think that's a second example. And then a third one is we have a company called Miro present. Miro, many of you probably know, they do like digital whiteboarding, very popular solution, huge scale. And they're going to be presenting about what they do with their community. To like the community itself is a great way to scale because your customers are kind of helping each other digitally. The customer gets a lot of value out of it, but also that's less work for the CSM. So those are three examples, like doing it in the product, doing it through a kind of a personalized journey, or doing it through community. And there's just tons of other ones out there. Those are just three that I thought of top of mind.
No, three great examples. You've stolen. I was going to say talk about community. I thought,
there you go.
We better get that one in, and then I was going to make you go, oh, of course, community. But you got there first. One I want to mention that we do just out of interest. We sell training. One of the issues about online self-study training is that it's very important to get through it and get certified and qualified, but there isn't generally a sense of urgency around it. So it doesn't get pushed to the top of the list, and it doesn't get done. And if it doesn't get done, then obviously you don't get the value, and you don't get the ROI. So we put a lot of time and effort working as customer success managers with our customers to help them to achieve an ROI through making sure people actually do their training. And one of the things we've done is we've created an online roadmap tool where they put in the learning speed of their users. They put in the amount of time per either week or per month they can choose that their students have to learn, and they put in the start date, and then it actually churns out an entire roadmap with all the milestones in of where every single level, every badge will be, when they're halfway, when they're the whole lot. And then that emails that to them. They then put it into their success plan, and they can publish it to their users, etc. So there's an example again of an automated process that really puts the customer in charge. They can play about with it. One of the things I think actually that we forget sometimes is actually sometimes customers actually prefer
totally
service automated, because they can play with it. They can ask stupid questions that are really embarrassing to ask a human, and say, well, what if I said it would take us 6 years to do your training? They wouldn't want to say that to me. Okay, but they could just see what it looks like. So it gives them some exploration and creativity that they may not feel comfortable doing in front of me by doing it on the tool. And also, by the way, if they want to do it at 2:00 on a Sunday morning, right, they'd have to wait for some CSM to be available. They can do it in there. So there's actually, and as a final point, sometimes I think we forget also that we assume that we're going to give our concierge best gold quality service to our biggest customers. But actually, sometimes it's the smaller customer who needs the most handholding. Because the big customers got HR and training and processes up the yin yang, and they've been there and done that, and they've got an expert in everything, and they could say, generally speaking, no, we can consume your product really easily. We don't need so much help. Whereas like a brand new startup company that's never done it before is like a rabbit in the headlights. Go, please help. We don't know what we're doing. So actually, it may be that some of your larger customers would prefer more automation and more digital customer success, and some of your smaller clients might actually then, you might free up your CSM's time to help them and give them a little bit more of a personal touch that they need. Just to say that.
So I'm so glad you said that, by the way, Rick, not to re-emphasize, but years ago, I put up a slide, not just me, many people, but I probably shared the most, this pyramid, and it's like, high touch customer success and then tech touch, right? And that was wrong. The idea that like tech touch, digital, whatever you want to call it, is only for small customers, 100% wrong. And I just couldn't agree more with what you just said.
Okay, let's change the direction now, if I may, Nick. And I'm going to ask about inside the company here, inside the company that owns a customer success team, looking at this perhaps through the lens of, first of all, of the VPCS or Director of Customer Success or whatever they are called, the CS team leader, but also perhaps going above that and looking at the senior business leaders as a team in general, CEO, CFO,
Yes.
and whoever else. What should they be thinking about or doing differently in terms of preparing their company and the customer success team to help them through this period of uncertainty by helping the customers? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that are really important.
Right.
There's what I would think of as almost like the internal things that are important to be just be viable in this new world, right? And then there's the customer facing side. So let me do the internal first, then I'll do customer.
Please.
On the internal side, I think we talked a little bit about it, but the themes I hear are digital. We talked about, you got to be investing in scale right now because you're not going to get a lot more headcount. But the only other one that I would say is sort of we haven't talked about yet is we're seeing a lot of clients, if you have enterprise customers, actually looking at creating paid offerings. So some people call it monetized customer success. Now, it's not just the CSM, because it's hard to just charge for that, but combining premium support, customer success management, training, maybe professional services all into one integrated SKU, huge opportunity. And what it does is it helps you have a more self-sustaining model. Because one of the challenges internally, and we all have friends who've gone through this, or maybe if you've gone through it, I have a lot of empathy for you, where the people kind of come in and say, the CFO, why do we need a customer success team?
Yeah.
What are they doing? What's the ROI, right? And so you need to really proactively be thinking about your business case, right? Whether it's an ROI around digital, hey, we don't need a lot of people, we're just automating, right? That's fine, that's a great ROI. Or it's monetized, so hey, you don't have to ask me about ROI, I charge for it, I pay for myself. Or it could be that your team is really, really clear in terms of the link to revenue, that's great too. But what you don't want to do is say, oh, my team, we're just really responsible for making the customers happy. That does not pass the CFO test in 2023. I'm just being honest, right?
Happy is a luxury.
It's tough. It's tough.
In business, happy is a nice to have. It's not.
It is. And of course, we want our customers to be happy. We wouldn't be in this job if we didn't enjoy that. But that's not enough. So build your business case for your team proactively, because otherwise people are going to come to you and say, why do we need you here, right? And it's tough, but it's just the reality. That's the internal side. Then you got the external side, right? Which is, okay, what do we do for our customers in this environment? One of the things we talked about is arming our champions. Because if you're doing a good job, our champions love what you're doing. Our Gainsight champions mostly love Gainsight, but if the CIO comes to them and says, why do we need Gainsight? Right? We got to proactively arm them. That's number one. Number two is, I think your customers want more advice from you than ever before because of what we're all going through, right? And so I'd really invest in thought leadership. That sounds kind of generic, but right, kind of like what we're doing right now for our customers, which are CS people, right? You and me, but you doing it for your customers, right? Not just through marketing for new prospects, but actually what are you doing to give advice? Because I would say if you want to differentiate yourself in your customers' eyes, part of it is you're not just a vendor. You're not just making software. I think Gainsight, for so many of our customers, we make great software, but it's not just that, right? We've got this thought leadership. We've got this, sort of value beyond that, right? Yeah. And then third thing I would add in is I would invest in community. And I'm not just saying the self-serving, hey, launch a community online. Sure, do that, use Gainsight or use something else that's great. I'm talking about just generally investing in community, getting your customers together, whether it's a Zoom happy hour, whether it's a dinner, whether it's a big conference, right? You can start small, but that's the other way you can differentiate yourself right now is I'm not just a software vendor. I'm actually a community. I'm helping you get better. And you said it up front, Rick, I'm helping my business get better. I'm helping my customers get better. But also what I'm doing is I'm helping you as a human in my customer get promoted, keep my job, enjoy my job more. And so think about that human side of community. I've been very fortunate in our community to see, thousands of people in our community go from CSM to CCO, right? And doesn't that feel great, Rick? When that happens, it's amazing.
No, absolutely.
But it also means that those people are more bonded to you as a vendor because you're part of their career.
Yeah.
And so how do you build a community in your business that makes your customer, you part of their career? That's the third challenge I'd throw out to you.
Brilliant. Love it. Are you familiar with the Challenger sale? It came out,
of course.
like,
Yeah.
ages ago now. It was like 15, 20 years ago or something. But I loved it when it came out. I just thought it was so cool. This is
Oh, good.
probably predates customer success management
Oh,
as
yeah.
a thing, right? And for those who haven't heard of it, it was a study done on 2,000 salespeople, B2B sales, and what they did was they studied the way in which the salesperson interacted with the customer, with the stakeholders, and they classified them into about 7 or 8 categories. Was it, Nick? Something like that.
Huh?
So you had like the lone wolf, and you had the friendly nose, all your kids' birthdays type salesperson, and you had the yes person who just whatever the customer wanted, they agreed and did it, and so on and so forth. But they had one category that was the most successful salesperson according to the research, which was the challenger, who said, no, you're wrong, actually, that isn't what you want. You want this. And I'm being a bit blunt there, and obviously you don't want to be that blunt with your customer unless you know them very well and they're quite happy for you to be like that, in which case you've got a great relationship and you're doing all right. But the point is that what customers actually want is not just your product, but they want your advice, because they know their world better than you, but you know your world better than them, or you should do. You should know your product better than they could ever do. And so you're going to give them advice because you've been there and done that with other clients. And that's like gold dust to them. So that's that thought leadership bit.
I love that, Rick, because I think a lot about the philosophy of what a software company is. And, in the early days, software companies were really differentiated. Oracle, so hopefully most of you know who Oracle is. The first thing they did was they made a database, right? And literally, in terms of the scale of their database, nobody else could do that at the time, right? And then you had something like VMware, who made the ability to virtualize computers or whatever. And then, but nowadays, software is not very differentiated. There's 100 different ways to do everything. What is differentiated is the expertise you have, the community you have, the thought leadership. And I would argue the whole core of a software company now is truly this expertise. And that's why customer success, it can feel tactical to some people. I think it's actually the heart of the value proposition in the future.
Great point. And if you extend that to resellers, because part of my background is Cisco, and if you think about it, how does a Cisco reseller different? It's the same product. It's exactly the same. It's the same box that Cisco reseller A sells, that Cisco reseller B. There is no difference except your expertise, your advice, your help and assistance, the fact that you get what they're trying to do, and you've got creative problem solving ideas, and you can be agile, and you can come up with a solution that is a wonderful solution that they would not have come up with on their own. And then you can help them, use that solution ongoing into the future to realize the value from it. Back to the value realization. So cool. Okay. Well, I think we're in agreement there as to some of the things that we can do. What about this point? I have noted, and we've surveyed actually a few times now, customer success managers, and what we tend to get back from the survey, well, one of the things is a heavy workload. I don't know if you've sort of found the same thing. Is
oh my gosh,
success managers often talk about a real challenge of a heavy workload. And I think, again, let's call it again, in times of uncertainty, where it's harder to hire an extra hand. That doesn't happen. We don't have the budget, so you're just going to have to manage on your own, guys. But here's another set of tasks for you to take on. And it seems a little bit like we often get, we're the last in, and no one's quite sure what we do, so we'll just chuck more stuff at you because you must be able to do it. So, because none of us have ever done it, so it must be your job because you're the new people. So, how can we prevent this from happening or manage this workload in a situation where we can't hire new people?
Totally, it's such a big issue, and it tears my heart out because you can sort of see both the passion people at CS have, but also sometimes there's a famous myth called the myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus is condemned to push a rock up a hill, and when you hear the phrase "push a rock up a hill," that comes from Sisyphus. And Sisyphus pushes the rock uphill, and then it rolls right back down to him, and he has to do it again, and you do it forever. And so that can feel like the job sometimes, because you have customer and you do great things with them, and there's a new champion, and now you have to re-educate them, and then there's a new competitor, and then there's a product outage, and there's never an end to it. Now, some people love the fact that there's never an end. We could just keep going. But I think there's 3 things we need to do as leaders to really help our teammates avoid this feeling of like the Sisyphean kind of like torture, right? So number one is we have to find a better way to scope what the customer success department does versus customer success as a company-wide thing, right? It's not like customer success department does everything to make customers successful. And this is where the name itself, Mark Benioff came up with the name customer success. I think it's a brilliant name, but it also is like the most open-ended job title in the history of humanity.
That's the thing, isn't it?
It's like literally like, oh, what is not customer success? And so therefore your colleagues are all like, well, that's the CSM's job. It's CSM's job. The reference is get somebody invited to a conference.
I describe it as the concierge syndrome.
Totally.
Just
and
call,
that's like
call your CSM. You want your shoes cleaned? Yeah. Put them outside your door and call the CSM. They'll come around.
So number one thing to do is scoping what is the job versus what are the other jobs and how is everyone doing customer success? This is really critical. Now, depending on your level in the organization, you don't always have the ability to drive that, but you can influence it. You can help scope out like what we're doing and what really also like
you can ask your team manager, what are my priorities?
That's exactly right. And then also you can give feedback because I would argue there's a ton of wasted effort in customer success, like any job, right? The 17th email you send a customer about something that they're not engaged with, right? The EBR that doesn't go anywhere, right? So there's
filling out forms that no one looks at.
Totally. So scope. Let's scope it so that we're not doing everything and also we're not doing anything that's wasteful. Number two, scale. Scale. So this is what we talked about already. What are the things we can push to digital, which is great for the client and it's great for you, right? So simple example that everyone would probably relate to, which is, when you get a question about the product and it's like literally in the documentation site and you're like going to the documentation site and sending a link to the customer, how much value did you really add? Not much at all. If the documentation site was really interactive, you got people to use it and it was integrated with the community and they're getting their answers there. That's one less random email you're sending, one more 20-minute slot to add value to your customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because where the burnout comes from, Rick, is not just the hours. It's actually hours that don't feel like they're moving the needle. No, most people are like you look at my day, we talked about before, it's a lot of meetings. But the reason I have a lot of energy is, oh my gosh, I get to do like really fun things like talk to customers, talk to you. But it's not fun to fill out a report or like send a link to documentation. So the second thing is scale. How do we help scale and automate the things through digital so we get more time back? And then the third one is celebration. So one of the challenges I think we have is in other fields, there's a little bit more of a clear milestone, right? So sales is very clear. Deal is done. You get like a little gong that rings or something happens on Slack.
Yeah.
There's probably a President's Club trip and things like that.
Probably is.
What are we doing to celebrate CSMs and celebrate the work they're doing so it feels genuine? I was talking to somebody recently and he said they have their sales kind of kick off or whatever, right? And he said that for every salesperson that crushed their number or whatever, they got to come up on stage, everyone's applauding, they celebrate, they give them some kind of a trophy or something like that, right? And then for the CSMs, you know what they do? They literally at the very end of the meeting, they put up a slide with like 50 people's names on it and said, congratulations to all these people. Literally, they're not on stage. They're on a slide in like 6-point font, right? Like talk about not recognizing and celebrating people, so those three things, scope, scale, and celebration. Those would be my 3 pieces of advice.
Love it. And worth noting here, customer excellence. Is it Alex Mead?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Alex Farmer. Yeah.
Alex Farmer. Thank you. Yeah. So check out, if you haven't already, the Customer Excellence Awards started last year. I was very pleased and proud to be asked to be a judge last year at the EMEA Awards, which I enjoyed very much, and also been asked back. So that's great to do the Americas Awards this year. So customer experience, check that out. I'm sure you can find, I think it's customerexperience.com, in fact, or .io, something like that. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. So if you're interested in that, so that's the industry celebrating, but obviously, the profession celebrating, but companies should also, as you're saying, be doing that. So Nick, I think the message here is don't work harder, work smarter.
Yeah.
Okay, and one of the ways of doing that is, I think, is repeatability. So templatize, do it once, and then just press a button for all the other times that you've got to do it. Oh, well done, Nick. Thank you. So for example, somebody asks you, I can't remember how to do process X, and it takes you 20 minutes to write out an email explaining process X. put screenshots in. Don't do that 25
No,
times. But people do.
they do.
And once, reference it in your community, shove it in, do a video, shove it in your community, and then just reference that from that point forward. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I know. I show you exactly how to do that. Just pop to the community, and then you'll see it in there. And by the way, there's a lot of other stuff in the community that you might find useful as well. So that I think is really the key here.
I'll give you some good news too, by the way, Rick. There's going to be a massive sea change in this for CSMs in the next few months, because generative AI truly is like a solution to this particular problem, right? And so we actually have some stuff we're working on, which will ship in the next couple of months, to solve what I call 3 of the most common day-to-day CSM challenges. Okay. So number one is, I get an email from somebody else in the company saying, what's going on with this customer? Can you prep me? Maybe it's executive, maybe it's a CEO, right? Like, prep me for this. And CSM has to go through their notes and type in all the, what's going on with the customer, fill out some form, and maybe go back and forth. Generative AI, like we've done a prototype, automatically generate a summary of like what's happening to the customer that's better than anything a human would write, and no time for the CSM. So check that one off. No, you don't have to prep your executive anymore. Number 2, you write all these emails to customers. Generative AI can give you a starting point for the emails, right? Like, why do I need to like write it from scratch? I will still want to look at it before it goes out, but Gainsight, we're going to generative AI written email. Number 3, the use case you just talked about, customers like, or employees trying to find information. You have to go around and you do it every time over and over again. So generative AI based search is so much better than traditional search. Traditional search is obviously keywords and stuff. Generative AI can look at kind of concepts. And so we've integrated in some of our products like Community, and the quality of information and answers is so much higher. So now your customer will be getting answers and not have to email you anymore. So my point, not just about Gainsight, in general, there is a big help coming to you very soon in the form of AI.
Okay. Hold that thought for a second. And I just want to check back, because I've noticed here we missed a question from Suvan Witto. Apologies if I got the name slightly wrong there, but uncertainty means play safe in case of investments. So how might businesses play safe nowadays or in the coming days? Because as per the present situation, most of the big players are fearing the uncertainty of the future. Have we answered that? Do you think? We've talked a little bit about, we agree. Uncertainty equals risk. Risk equals caution. Caution equals do the necessary things, but don't right now. Now is not the time to do a lot of high risk innovation or big creativity necessarily, unless, of course, you've taken a long hard look at your product and found it doesn't do something that's necessary, as we talked about, in which case time to pivot. But assuming that that's not the case, and you've got a product that is focus down on what does your product do that you can't get anywhere else, hopefully, or if you can, that it does better, or that you do better because of the knowledge and skills and expertise that surround it, because as we said, and particularly with software as a service, it's the bundle they're purchasing, and focus in on this is the why us, as opposed to why buy from somebody else who also sells ERP, because the company you mentioned earlier, I've forgotten their name already, but that you were working with, they're an ERP. Well, so, okay, so there are others who provide ERP. Why them? Well, I'm sure they've got a very good why us. We need to be really clear on the why us. What is it that we do? And that could be quite niche. So again, we need to understand, well, what's the total addressable market, and is that sustainable, or do we need to actually have some why us in other markets as well that's going to sustain us across this? So you need to think about that, and that's obviously what your senior business leadership team should be doing. So that's their role, is really to make sure that we've got some answers to the question, why should customers come to us? I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
I think you nailed it. The only thing if I was summarizing that from a SaaS company perspective, no, you said it really well. I think that in an uncertain time, the default answer goes to the bigger vendor. And so what that means is, like, for example, in any given let's say you're a disruptor in a given category, right? You're like the new player in a given category. Right now, you got to work really hard. Otherwise, people are going to be like, I'm just going to go with the safe choice. I'm going to go with the safe. So that safe choice, obviously in a given category could be a Gainsight or whatever, but in a bigger category could be Salesforce or SAP or Oracle, right? And so by default, if you do nothing in your point solution vendor, you will absolutely be consolidated. So you got to get on it right now for sure. I'm sure you already are, but that's something to think about.
And another question's just come in from Estefania Cabane. Could you please explain the difference between customer success and account management, if any?
Well, Rick, you've gotten this question about 1 billion times in your career. I have too. So actually, do you want to take a stab and I'll add in my own 2 cents, but I'd love to hear what you say.
Yeah. Okay. So the cynical part of me, which is a very, very large part of me, says, well, there is no difference. Okay. Customer success management and account management. Well, there is, but if you like, there's a nuance in the name.
Yes.
Because account management is saying, we want to manage you to get as much out of you as possible.
Totally.
I'm managing the account. You're my account, and I want the money out of you, right? Customer success management turns it 180 degrees around and says, I'm here to get the most value for you.
Yes.
I'm here to manage your customer success. By accident, I'll be getting lots of success for my business, but I'm here to manage your customer success. So I would say that that's the difference. But it is a semantic argument. If someone said to me, the difference between account management and success management is the way they're spelled, I probably wouldn't have a big argument. Over to you, Nick.
I think you said, well, I know we're almost out of time. I'll just say that I think you said it so well. I was interested to see what you would say too. I feel that fundamentally, like what it is the best way to grow customers is to drive success for them. And so what happened is,
exactly,
in the old world, you could have this very like selfish, I'm going to account manage you, right? This is such a impersonal term. And now it's like, no, we both win together. I'm going to make you successful. You're going to grow with me. And if I don't make you successful, you're not going to grow with me. We're tied at the hip between the vendor and the customer. And so that's why for a lot of companies, I tell people, look, as a CS person, don't be afraid of like revenue. You're driving revenue, whether you own the quote or not, that's a whole different discussion.
You're not in sales, wake up.
Yeah. Like you have it. Sales is not bad. That's how your companies, operate. And by the way, the people that are shy from talking about the revenue impact of their function are the people where people are going to question why we have a CS team. So yes. Very important.
Yes. Wake up.
I know. Got to run a couple minutes, but this has been super fun.
No, it's fine. So look, let's end it there. My final question to you was just going to be let's see, what have we got?
I think we hit most of them here. Yeah.
Oh, look, let's just end on this. You mentioned it earlier, Gainsight Pulse. Could you explain just again in two sentences?
Sure.
I know it's San Francisco, yes, May 17th and 18th.
May 17th, 18th, San Francisco. And the main thing is, we try to really make it an industry event. It's not about Gainsight, not about Gainsight products. It's really about all the things we talked about. What's the difference between CS and account management? How should I compensate my team? How do I deal with the uncertainty of the world we're in? How do I scale through digital? And like I said, I've watched a lot of the videos. The content is like, you go to a lot of conferences and the content's very high level, like, hey, theoretical platitudes. And this is like extremely actionable. Like literally, this is how you go do digital renewals. This is how you go launch a community. This is how you go work with your product team. And I hope people will leave with really practical advice. And perfect. Practical is it's in your name, man. So
exactly right. And everybody, everybody says how much they get out of the Gainsight Pulse events. So
thanks so much.
You've got the URLs there up on the chat window. There's also a URL to evaluate this webinar. And I guess it just remains for me to say, thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Nick, particularly, of course, for giving us an hour of your time. We really do appreciate it, and I hope you'll come back again, in a few months to continue the conversation once more.
We'll definitely be back. Thanks, Rick. Really appreciate it.
Much. All right, that's it from everybody. Bye bye now.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.